All right, let's jump straight into a really pretty wild chapter from the Bible today. 2 Kings chapter 6.
Yeah, it's quite something.
This single chapter, it just packs in so many different events around the prophet Elisha. You get these incredible, sometimes really surprising displays of power.
Definitely. And you also see the very human ways people react, when faced with extreme situations.
It really does feel like a microcosm, doesn't it? The world Elisha lived in, it shifts so dramatically.
Absolutely. You go from like a small personal problem right up to a major national crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Total despair in a city under siege.
Yeah, you see divine intervention, human fear, even a moment of pretty startling mercy. It's all in there.
It is. Okay, so where does it start? Not with kings or armies, surprisingly.
No, it kicks off with something much more, well, relatable, almost mundane. Elisha's with this group, the company of prophets, his disciples, sort of.
Right, living
Yeah.
communally, and they've got a practical issue.
Yeah, they basically come to him and say, look, this place where we meet, it's just too small. We've outgrown it.
Simple problem.
Yeah.
Happens all the time. Need more space.
Totally. So their plan is pretty straightforward. Let's go down to the Jordan River, cut down some trees, get some poles, and build ourselves a new place.
A bit of community construction. Sensible.
And Elisha says, okay, I'll come with you, which is interesting.
Yeah, he's not just delegating. He's like rolling up his sleeves with them.
Exactly. But then, while they're working down by the river, something happens. It's small scale, maybe, but huge for the guy involved.
Right. One of the men is chopping down a tree, and wham, the iron axe head flies off the handle.
Straight into the Jordan.
And his reaction tells you everything. He cries out, "Oh, my lord, it was borrowed."
Ah, that detail. It wasn't just his tool he lost.
Exactly. Now he's got to go back to whoever lent it to him, empty-handed.
Mm-hmm.
That's stressful. It feels very real, very human, that immediate panic.
Absolutely. It's a minor crisis in the grand scheme, maybe, but for him, losing borrowed gear is a big deal. So Elisha steps in, asks him, okay, where exactly did it fall?
Wants the precise spot. And once the guy points it out, Elisha does something simple yet strange. He cuts a stick.
Just a stick. And he throws it into the water right there.
And then, physics just kind of takes a break.
Yeah. The iron axe head, which should be sitting at the bottom of the river, floats.
Just pops up to the surface. You can almost picture it bobbing there.
And Elisha's instruction is so simple. Lift it out.
And the man reaches in, grabs it. Problem solved. Tool recovered.
Okay, so why start the chapter here? With a lost, borrowed axe head. What's the point before we get to the bigger conflicts?
Well, I think it does a couple of things. It sets a tone, maybe, that this divine power Elisha has access to, it isn't just for, the massive national stuff.
Right. It works for the small things, too. The everyday problems.
Yeah, even slightly embarrassing ones, like losing something you borrowed. It shows that those things matter, too. And it establishes Elisha's character, right? Attuned to the individual's distress, not just the king's.
That makes sense. It grounds him before things get, well, much bigger.
Exactly. And they do get bigger immediately.
Yeah, the chapter just pivots. We go from the riverbank, this small personal miracle, straight to, essentially, the front lines, Israel versus Aram.
Total scene change. Now we're with Ben-Hadad, the king of Aram. And he's actively planning attacks against Israel, setting ambushes, military strategy.
But his plans keep failing, because Elisha knows.
Right. The text says, time and again Elisha warned the king of Israel where the Arameans were planning to camp. So the king of Israel just avoids the traps.
You can imagine how frustrating that would be for the Aramean king.
Oh, it drives him mad. He's furious. He assumes there must be a traitor, a spy in his own inner circle.
He demands his officers tell him, will you not tell me which of us is on the side of the king of Israel?
But one of his officers has a different idea, a really startling one. He says basically, it's not us, boss. It's Elisha, the prophet in Israel.
And he adds that incredible detail.
Yeah.
Elisha knows the very words you speak in your bedroom.
That detail is amazing, isn't it? It suggests Elisha's insight isn't just military intelligence. It's like supernatural knowledge. Knowing private conversations, thoughts even.
Yeah, for the Arameans, this isn't just clever spycraft. This is something else entirely. Something divine, maybe.
So naturally, the Aramean king decides Elisha himself is the target now. We need to capture this prophet.
He finds out Elisha's in a town called Dothan, and he doesn't send a small team.
No way. He sends a major force. Horses, chariots, a strong contingent of soldiers. They surround Dothan by night.
Okay, picture this. Elisha's servant wakes up the next morning, goes outside, maybe for some water, stretches, and sees the entire city surrounded. Enemy soldiers, horses, chariots everywhere.
His reaction.
Oh.
Utter panic. Oh, my lord, what shall we do? I mean, what else would you say? They look completely outnumbered, trapped.
And Elisha's response is just legendary. So calm, don't be afraid.
Easy for him to say.
Right, but then he adds, those who are with us are more than those who are with them, which, based on what the servant sees, makes absolutely no sense.
Visibly, it's impossible. But Elisha knows there's more going on. So he prays, "O Lord, open his eyes so he may see."
And the Lord does. The servant looks again, and suddenly,
He sees it. The hills around Elisha are full of horses and chariots of fire, a heavenly army, the unseen reality made visible.
wow, that image, the fiery chariots, that's the more than those who are with them.
Exactly, a powerful, dramatic reveal of divine protection. Okay, so the Aramean army starts to advance. They're coming for Elisha.
Elisha prays again, but this time it's aimed at the enemy. Strike these people with blindness.
And bam, the Lord does it. The entire advancing force is struck blind.
Just like that, blinded. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Elisha doesn't just disappear or fight back in a conventional way. He goes out and talks to them.
Yeah, he engages the blind soldiers. He tells them basically, "You're lost. This isn't the right road, not the right city. But follow me. I'll take you to the man you're looking for."
He's promising to lead them to Elisha, while being Elisha.
It's quite the move. And he leads this entire blinded army, on foot presumably, all the way to Samaria.
The capital city of Israel. He walks them straight into the lion's den, so to speak.
Right into the heart of the enemy territory. Once they're safely inside the city walls, Elisha prays a third time,
This time, Lord, open the eyes of these men so they can see.
and their sight returns.
Yeah.
And they look around and realize, oops, they're inside Samaria, surrounded by Israelites, trapped.
Imagine that moment. Okay, so the king of Israel sees this, an entire enemy army delivered right to his doorstep, completely neutralized without him lifting a finger. What's his first thought?
Vengeance. He asks Elisha, almost eagerly, "Shall I kill them? My father, shall I kill them?" He's ready for a massacre.
But Elisha says no, absolutely not.
Do not kill them. And his reasoning is fascinating. He asks the king, "Would you kill men you have captured with your own sword or bow?"
Meaning, you didn't win these soldiers through battle. This wasn't your military victory.
Precisely. This was a divine intervention. So the usual rules of engagement maybe don't quite apply. Killing prisoners might be normal in war, but this capture was different.
So what's the alternative, if not execution?
Elisha's command is radical. Set food and water before them, let them eat and drink, and then go back to their master.
Feed the enemy army after they came to capture your prophet.
Yes. And not just scraps. The text says they prepared a great feast for them, a banquet for the captured, blinded enemy soldiers.
Wow. And after this feast, they just let them go, send them back to Aram.
Sent them home. And the result, the text tells us, so the bands from Aram stopped raiding Israel's territory. For a while, at least. This specific kind of threat ceased.
That is an astonishing outcome. From blindness to being led into the capital to a feast to peace, what does this whole episode show us?
Well, it's obviously about divine power and protection, like the chariots of fire. But it's also about how that power is used. It's not just destructive force.
Right. It incapacitates, it redirects, but then it shows mercy, generosity.
Maybe. Or maybe it's showing a kind of supreme confidence. We don't need to kill you. Divine power handled this, and now we'll show you something unexpected. It certainly breaks the cycle of violence, at least temporarily. It really makes you think about different ways to handle conflict, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. A completely different model. But, the chapter isn't over, and the peace doesn't last.
No. The tone shifts again.
Yeah.
Dramatically. The text says, sometime later, Ben-Hadad, the same Aramean king, is back.
And this time, it's not just raiding parties.
No, this time he brings his entire army and lays siege to Samaria again. A full-blown siege.
And sieges mean one thing eventually. Starvation. The text says a great famine hits the city because the siege goes on for so long.
And it gives these horrifying details to show just how bad it got. You mentioned them earlier. The prices.
Yeah, a donkey's head sold for 80 shekels of silver.
80 shekels. That's an insane amount of money. Like maybe a year's wages for a common worker. For the head of a donkey, an animal considered unclean anyway. People were desperate.
And the other price, a quarter of a cab of seed pods for 5 shekels.
A tiny amount, maybe a cup or two, of something you'd normally feed to animals. Maybe dove's dung, some interpretations say. 5 shekels for that. It paints a picture of utter grinding starvation, people eating anything.
You can almost feel the city wasting away. The king of Israel is walking on the city wall, probably surveying the defenses, seeing the suffering, and a woman cries out to him, "Help me, my lord the king."
And his first reaction just shows his own despair, right? He snaps back, "If the Lord does not help you, where can I get help for you? From the threshing floor, from the winepress."
He's saying, look, God's not helping, and all the normal places for food are empty. What do you expect me to do? He feels powerless.
But then he does ask her, "Okay, what is actually your problem? Tell me what happened."
In her story, it's just chilling. One of the most disturbing things you'll read.
It's horrific.
Yeah.
She explains she made a pact with another starving woman, an agreement.
She says, "This woman said to me, 'Give up your son so we may eat him today, and tomorrow we'll eat my son.'"
Unbelievable. A pact of cannibalism involving their own children.
And she continues, "So we cooked my son and ate him." Just states it baldly. But then,
The next day, she went to the other woman and said, "Okay, give up your son so we may eat him." But the other woman had hidden her son. Broke the pact.
the king hears this story, this ultimate low point of human desperation and betrayal within his city. What's his reaction?
He tears his robes. The classic sign of extreme grief, horror, maybe rage. And as he does, the people nearby see something else.
Underneath his royal clothes, he's wearing sackcloth.
Right. That rough, itchy fabric. A sign of mourning or repentance or deep distress. He was already wearing it, maybe privately under his robes. This story just brings his internal agony out into the open.
He's clearly been suffering with the city, but this confession just pushes him over the edge. And in that moment of agony and despair, he makes a terrible, irrational turn.
He blames Elisha, the prophet, the one who previously saved the city, the one he called Father.
He swears an oath right there. "May God deal with me, be it ever so severely, if the head of Elisha, son of Shaphat, remains on his shoulders today." He vows to execute Elisha.
It's such a shocking reversal. How do you get from asking Elisha for advice on whether to kill captured enemies to wanting to kill Elisha himself?
Utter desperation, I guess. Maybe he sees Elisha as God's representative, and if God is allowing this suffering, then Elisha is somehow responsible. Or maybe hope is just completely gone, and he's lashing out.
It feels like a complete breakdown. His perspective is shattered by the horror.
Meanwhile, Elisha isn't taken by surprise. He's sitting inside with the city elders. He knows the king's vow. He knows an executioner is on the way.
Yeah, he tells the elders, "Look, this murderer is sending someone to take off my head. When the messenger comes, shut the door and hold it fast against him."
And then he adds something telling. Is not the sound of his master's footsteps behind him?
He knows the king himself is coming right behind the messenger. The king is personally invested in this. He's coming too.
The messenger gets there, they hold the door, and then the king arrives. And his final words in this chapter just perfectly sum up his state.
He says, looking at the situation, likely addressing Elisha or the elders, "This disaster is from the Lord." He acknowledges the source.
But instead of hope, or prayer, or seeking guidance,
He concludes, "Why should I wait for the Lord any longer?"
wow, that's the bottom. He sees the disaster as divine, but the suffering has crushed his faith, or at least his willingness to hope or wait for divine help. It leads him directly to blaming and wanting to kill the prophet.
It's incredibly powerful
Yeah.
and tragic, recognizing God's hand but turning away in despair, leading to violence.
So, this chapter, what a journey. We start with a borrowed axe head floating in a river, a small personal miracle. Then, an enemy army blinded, captured, fed, and sent home, resulting in peace.
Right. Then the complete opposite. A horrific siege, famine driving people to cannibalism, and a king hitting rock bottom, turning on the very prophet who helped him before.
The contrasts are just stunning. The shifts in fortune, in divine action, in human reaction, all within these verses.
It really covers the spectrum, doesn't it? From unexpected mercy to the deepest depths of human suffering and brokenness.
You see the highs, the lows, the bizarre, the horrifying, all side by side.
Leaves you with a lot to wrestle with.
It really does. So as you think about this journey through 2 Kings 6, maybe consider this. How does extreme desperation change us? How does it warp our view of help, of hope, even our relationships with people who've been there for us?
And maybe also, what does this chapter suggest about divine intervention itself? Appearing in such varied ways, sometimes seemingly miraculous rescues, other times allowing or bringing about immense suffering. How do those pieces fit together, if they do?
Definitely something to keep thinking about.